Great, let's jump into it. I am so excited to be here with Trey, Sampler's Director of Strategic Partnerships. Today, we'll be talking about all things retail and e-commerce, trends, industry insights, media. I'm really excited. But before we get into things, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your role at Sampler, Trey.
Yeah, hi Christina. Thanks for having me. Episode 2. Hopefully I can fill the shoes of episode 1. Was that Garrett?
It was
Anyway,
Garrett.
so about me, my name is Trey. As you said, I lead our strategic partnerships initiatives at Sampler, and that's kind of a vague term. My focus really is on how do we take the great platform that Sampler has built over the better part of the past decade and embed it directly within retail, e-commerce, retail media, and loyalty channels. I've been with Sampler for about 2 years now. I was in the CPG space for about 5 years prior, and I started my career many years ago in the video game industry. So I have kind of a random background, but super excited about all the change that's happening in CPG and where things are going.
Amazing. Happy to have you. I know episode 2 is going to be a great one. And I'm really excited to hear your perspective on today's topic. So let's jump into it. Overseeing Sampler's partnerships, you work with a lot of major retailers. How have you seen retailers evolve the buyer experience?
I think the way shoppers discover products and the way people shop has really changed a lot in the past couple of years. Obviously, COVID was a huge catalyst for change, but I think we were seeing trends happening even preceding COVID in terms of the impact of digital. Obviously, e-commerce specifically has grown a lot. There's been all these stats about how much COVID drove that spike in e-commerce growth, which seems to have permanence. But I think the bigger story really is just that the way people shop, even in store, is increasingly impacted by digital. If you go into a brick and mortar grocery store, for example, you're probably already being influenced, or you've already been influenced on what you want to buy or what you're looking at based on maybe something that you saw on social or something that you searched for. You're maybe using the retailer's app to build your list in advance. So there's just so many more opportunities to influence the shopper behavior. 10 years ago, it was really happening all within the store environment. Now it's just a much more complex journey when you're deciding what to buy as a shopper.
Definitely. And how would you say retail media is evolving to encompass more than just the basics? So beyond tactics like sponsored search, display ads, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think we're seeing retail media just become more sophisticated. I feel like when retail media started, and still for a lot of retailers who are just getting into to their own retail media offering, the most basic, call it the Model T version of retail media, is literally just allowing manufacturers to influence search results. So if I search for snacks, I might see Oreo showing up on the top of that list because Mondelez paid to be there. And I think, that's a very, very basic solution. And I think, frankly, it's not really a great experience for shoppers. I know when I look for products, I often will just ignore what I see as the sponsored results because I just want to see what's there organically, what people are reviewing, and so on and so forth. So I think, as retail media becomes more sophisticated, retailers are going to increasingly look for ways they can really engage shoppers and really add value to that shopper experience. People don't like to be marketed to. People don't trust advertising. So finding ways to get brands to engage shoppers in authentic ways that are not necessarily directly on a retailer.com page, but are in different parts of the buying journey. I think that's definitely where things are going with retail media.
Yeah, for sure. I can speak to that myself. I will always skip past those sponsored, either products, ads, whatever. So it's an interesting perspective. And how would you say retailers are leveraging first-party data to improve ROI of their retail media initiatives?
I think, first party data is really the gold mine. That's the value of working with retailers. You look at someone like Kroger, the data that they have on terms of their shoppers and what products and brands they're engaging with, and the ability to predict what someone might buy in the future based on their previous transaction history is super powerful. But I think ultimately it's all about closed loop attribution. The holy grail in the advertising world is to be able to show a direct ROI, understand, what did this do in terms of impacting the behavior of my buyer, or of the shopper. And so being able to serve a piece of media through a retailer, or run some sort of a program through a retailer that has that direct data connectivity to understand what happens to that shopper after they were served an ad or engaged in a program. I think that is the ultimate driver of enabling manufacturers and advertisers to spend money intelligently and in ways that will actually show value versus just delivering, I'll call them fluffy metrics around impressions or whatever that don't really mean anything. So yeah, I think first party data is just the root of the value prop for retailers.
For sure. And lastly, I'd love to get your perspective on how relevant ratings and reviews are for products which are often purchased offline.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of goes back to what I said earlier about the path to purchase being digitally influenced. Even if a shopper is buying something um, in store, they're pulling something off the shelf, they probably were even inadvertently influenced by what they saw online. I mean, you might not be explicitly looking for a rating and review on, I'll use Oreo again, as an example. But you still might be, if you're searching for a product on your phone and you're looking for something to put in your kid's lunch as a treat, the ability for a product to show up on the first page of Google search results, for example, or if I'm on a retailer app, the ability for a product to show up on the top of the list is increasingly driven by rating and review activity. So I think ultimately there's a trend we're seeing where people are researching before they go in store and figuring out what to buy. And obviously ratings and reviews are a very important driver for that behavior. The other thing is, ultimately shoppers don't trust brands. Seeing an ad, you could have an amazing piece of advertising, but people are less likely to trust what brands are saying. They really trust what other consumers are saying. And what better way to quantify that than from a rating and review?
Definitely, I can pay testament to that. I'll scour ratings and reviews if I haven't had the opportunity to, hold it, feel it, taste it, really try it out for myself before purchasing it. But that's everything for me. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, Trey. This is an extremely relevant topic, especially in today's retail landscape. So it was great to hear your perspective. Thanks again, and it was great chatting.
Thanks for having me.